Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first keynote session of this Global Leadership Lab immersion on the theme of leading movements. We have folks from all over the world joining us on Hopin, YouTube, and Facebook. My name is Samar, and I'm an Atlas Core Fellow from Tunisia. I'm very excited to be today's session moderator, and I have the pleasure to speak with our amazing guest. Before we kick off, here's a quick reminder that our Atlas Core team will be monitoring chat on each of the platforms, so use it to ask questions to our keynote speaker. To make things easier, start your comment with the letter Q. Say where you're from and ask your question. We'll get back to it and at the end of today's event. And to warm us all up a little bit, here's the nice breaker question for everyone. If you could be fluent in another language instantly, which would you choose and why? And while you're gonna let us know in the comment section below, let me introduce our today's guest, William Nazaret. He's a highly successful entrepreneur in the mobile and internet spaces. After obtaining a PhD at University of California, Berkeley, in 1983, he held a brief stint as a faculty member at MIT, which was followed by a prolonged and productive career in private industry. William is said to be one of those human beings blessed with the talent to turn challenges into opportunities and dreams into realities. He's a very active in education, social charity, and artistic patronage endeavors as a way to help others achieve the kind of dreams he himself had when he was a child. Welcome, William. We are so happy to have you with us today. And to start our session, I'm gonna ask you the same question: is there a language you'd love to speak without having to learn it?
Oh, yes, Chinese. Uh, I have a fascination with Chinese because I have traveled for at least 15 years to China on and off
Wow.
on business and on academic endeavors, and it it is the largest probably. I mean, the of all the languages in the world, it is the one that I do not know that I am missing because there are so many people in and outside China that speak Chinese that I would love to be able to communicate directly with them.
Honestly, amazing because I consider it as one of the most difficult languages. So yes, I agree. And my next question is on your website, we can read a motto: if you are not in the business of improving someone else's life, you are never going to be relevant. What does this sentence mean to you as a professional?
Well, yeah, first of all, the definition of relevance is quite subjective. When I say relevant, I mean it in the sense of how I see myself in the world. You know, what was I brought to the world? And for me, the possibility of influencing other people's lives is first and foremost. So, since I had been a little bit academic most of my profession in industry and in business, what I meant to say by that is it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing, any kind of business. I don't care exactly whether it is technological or not, services, health. Anything you do is best done when you keep in mind the people that you are helping. There is no uh, professional task that I know that doesn't have a human aspect. And I think all the people that are with us today would have understood by now that many times we forget the human aspect of the things that we do. So for me, influencing people, improving their lives, and most important, learning from them is what matters the most because I think it is a fundamental piece of the road to world peace.
Wow, amazing. I've never thought it that way, but you're right. Maybe at some point everyone is helping each other and we don't really realize it. Like when we talk about helping each other and dedicating our life, it's more of in a humanitarian section or in a charity way, maybe. But yeah, you're right.
But
And
also
yeah.
at the same time, and this is important, Many times we are so consumed, so dedicated, so excited of, because of what we do in
That's
our
right.
professions. And because we are not aware of who we are impacting, sometimes without meaning it, we do damage. So this kind of awareness works both ways. It
Yeah,
works for
definitely.
you to be, measuring yourself against the goal of helping other people and helping the world. But it also works to remind you that many things we do may have negative consequences for other people.
That's right. And that reminds me of a quote saying, help others achieve their dreams and you'll achieve yours. So,
Yes, yes.
and talking about this, like, I know that you've been dedicating your time to helping others achieve their dreams, similar to you when you were a child. What is the biggest dream you have had and has it come true?
Oh,
Like, did
travel,
you ever
travel,
see yourself in the position that you are in now?
travel the world. Uh, if I wanted to describe to you in 2 minutes, what was I like when I was a child? Child means from 5 to 10 years of age. Uh, I was born in a large and very exciting city called Caracas in Venezuela, and I just walked the city incessantly. I mean, my mother would see me out after school, and she never knew where I was going. And many times she didn't know when I was coming back. I walked, met people, uh, made friends, became aware of that large body of humans that lived in that city probably of some 3 million people, which by standards in China and in India is a tiny city, but for standards in South America, it's a large city. And at some point, and this is what led me to life and career, speaking four languages all over the world, is that I just simply at some point ran out of space in Caracas. It became too small for me. So, not coincidentally, as soon as I finished the university, I took off, and my poor mother knew that I was taking off for good because I had such a desire to meet people, to know the world, north and south, east and west. And luckily, because of the explosion of technology, right when I started doing my doctor's studies in Berkeley, uh, naturally, when I finished my studies, what I did took me in the direction of worldwide reach. So, in that sense, I mean, that dream that I had as a boy, I'm still going around the world. Don't expect me to settle down anytime soon.
My God, that's that's really amazing.
Yeah.
And like you also dedicated many years of your career to lifting startups and helping them grow. Um, can I ask you what are some of the most noteworthy initiatives that you've supported?
Well, I am uh, I am an odd entrepreneur, and maybe as an investor too, because my colleagues tend to have concentration areas, and they very much keep themselves within those areas. But since I am a quite curious person, many interests, uh, I couldn't actually concentrate too much on a single area because I would be leaving out things that I care for tremendously. So I have been successful investing in what had become financially successful ventures, where you measure success by growth very much in financial terms. But I have also invested my time and my presence in ventures that cannot be measured in financial terms. Those are mostly social ventures. And just to mention another area, which doesn't include charity, which is for me quite a big area. Uh, I am constantly involved with artists and musicians. I was a musician myself, so I am well known in certain areas of the world as a tutor as a mentor to young musicians. So I do all these things, and as I say, as long as the day has hours available, I want to reach, I want to influence, I want to make a difference for somebody else.
This is really huge and takes a lot of energy, honestly. And this is a question that maybe our audience is really interested to know. What qualities do you look for in young leaders that you support? Like, I believe you have experience working with people of many different characters. So, what
Yeah.
are the ideal traits that someone should have to become a great leader and a change maker?
Well, when people ask me that question, I always stutter because the, there is a part of what I do when I am approached or I meet someone, potential leader, that is uh, how could I say that? It's almost compulsive. It's not something that I have written an algorithm, but the first thing that attracts me about someone, I don't care if you are a social worker, a teacher, a technologist, a politician, is passion. I mean, it is difficult to think highly. And I don't mean this from the human point of view. I respect every human being. But from the point of view of leadership, if you do not show passion, I mean, the first thing that attracts people's attention to you, it doesn't matter what you do, is passion. So that probably helps explain why I have worked almost statistically more often with women than men, because I find women are equipped with higher and more natural levels of passion, and that's something that evokes in me uh, the desire to work with someone that has a passion, that can articulate it, and that you can see in their eyes that they're willing to go great stands, sometimes giving your own life for what you believe in.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this. Um, and you said before that digital transformation is your favorite tool to advance society and drive out inequality and poverty. What is it about that makes it special in your eyes? Like, what role do you think digital transformation has to play in our near and far future? What
I'll,
strategies? Yeah.
I'll give you an example that this is going to be controversial, but this is good because if we don't have controversy during the next 40 minutes, this is going to get boring. What do I mean by digital transformation as an overcomer? Overcoming is a tool to overcome. Let's take the topic of racism, which is a topic that is very much in everybody's mind at these days. Uh, when you go into social media and you interact with people and you interact with someone who you do not know well yet, it's very difficult, after, in the first while, to actually be aware of somebody's skin color, many times gender. So technology has afforded a level of communication that is very even, that is not subject early on. Later on, it could develop very well into what is those horrendous things that we do, like discrimination, misogyny, and all those bad things. But early on, you're in front of another human being who is communicating with you. Uh, this example is very good because it allows me to inject myself into the discussion that we have today about what is being called, I don't like the term, systemic racism. Uh, Racism, like many bad traits of human life, we got many good ones, we have a few bad ones. Racism is something that is like a virus. It installs itself in society, in the methods, in the protocols, in the practices, in the language, and that takes years. The best way to disrupt that settling of something as bad as racism in the system is when there is a shock to the system. And you tell me, especially those of you who are probably somewhere between 20 and 25 years or maybe 30 years, if the disruption that technology has caused is not enough for people to not to automatically accept and engage in behaviors and practices that we do not should be exercising. So technology, because it's new, because it changes rules, because it introduces new ways of doing things, has, and I have seen that with my eyes, a potential, two qualities, erasing and equalizing. Erasing, I don't know if you guys are a fan of golf, when somebody goes into the bunker, which is where the sand is, those holes with sand, well, the first thing you do is to try to get out of there. And if you notice the rules, the courtesy rules of golf, the player, once having gotten the ball out of the bunker, the last thing it does, it takes a tool and cleans and evens the sand before leaving. So this equalization, disruption equalization factor, in my view, makes possible to achieve things that in the past for me was very difficult in terms of reaching people, in terms of changing lives, in terms of fostering educations in ways that are flexible and not rigid. I mean, I'm a big fan of technology. I don't hide that because I've seen technology change lives.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. Like, I was thinking, what strategies have been effective for bridging the digital divide and increasing access to technology around the world? Like, you have specific examples.
That is a very good question. Those of you who know me within Atlas know that, for instance, the biggest uh, chunk of my time today is devoted to a venture that we have in Mexico. It's called Spica. Spica is a star. It's a constellation. And what Spica does is tackle the following situation. If I want people to catch up, to develop themselves as communities, as women, as men, into the future, connectivity is fundamental. I mean, the fact that close to 1 billion people still have connectivity challenges is what gets in the way of technology making more of a difference. So, if you know me by now, after 15 minutes talking, it's not a coincidence that I dedicate myself now a good part of my time to solve in a real way, not solve it in a PowerPoint, solve in a real way the issue of taking digital connectivity to underserved communities. So in Mexico, we only work with the 40 million people in Mexico who live in rural communities. We do not touch a single customer that lives in a city. It's not our focus. You remember, if you're not in the business of changing somebody's life, you're never going to be relevant. This is the way we're relevant in Mexico. And we're using Mexico because Mexico is a country that has certain characteristics such that if we are successful, which we are being, in eliminating the digital gap, this is going to become an example for the rest of the world. I could do this in tiny country, and but it doesn't reach. If we change this in Mexico, it's going to become a big thing, and I like making impact at a bigger scale.
That's pretty impressive. Thank you so much for sharing this, William, with us. And you've taught statistical computing at University of California, Berkeley. What would you
Yeah.
say is the importance of statistics in the social change sector? Like,
Wow, this is a I get very nostalgic when I talk about statistic or data science, as they call it today.
I'm a
Well,
data scientist. Oh,
I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go study to UC Berkeley and to study statistics. And I got my doctor's degree, and I sit here today, and I can't believe that way back in the 80s when I studied this. we have to actually explain people why we studied this. It is like people thought that this was something, like people would go and study data science because it was fun. And yet we are here today, and it is nearly impossible to tackle any substantive, important topic for the world and for countries as a whole that doesn't involve, quantitative analytics and research in order to find solutions to serious problems like the pandemic. So I said it's nostalgia because I didn't think that I would still, at this age, be doing numbers, as I call it, and I do it every day, every day. I have I have a poster in my workplace that says, "I believe in God. Everybody else brings data." Okay? So any argument that you're gonna make with me, you have to have the data to back it up.
I love what you said. Like, that's right. And are there like any challenges that you recognize in this context?
Any challenges in what respect?
Yes, challenges like regarding s- the importance of statistics in the social change sector.
Okay, well, I think the biggest contribution that that data sciences as a term has already put forward in the world is to help uh, build substantive and constructive discourse. We all, as people, some of you as youngsters, me as a father of 6 children, we understand the difficulty of engaging in constructive conversation when it is you versus me. Normally, you don't get to anywhere. When you put data in the middle, then we have, like a platform through which we can analyze our differences or our approaches to a singular problem. So this is something that is not it's not written much about, but I think we have become used, and for the good of the world, to engage in controversy, engage in the bridging of differences, engaging in debate, knowing that no matter what the topic is, there is plenty of availability of data for you to make your argument. That used not to be like that before. And this is, I think, has made an important contribution to the to the solution of many problems to which different parts of the world uh, see it differently. So data and data science has contributed to uh, base up, to sustain these debates in a way that is more constructive and that can be sustained over time, because that is something else. I mean, uh, my opinions on a certain topic today are not going to be the same 5, 10 years from now. But the representation of ideas, of theses, of programmatic solutions, the representation of those things is go back 10 years before, 5 now, and project to the future and understand, which is the great deep learning, how have we progressed a long time in understanding the problem at hand.
Yes. Totally agree, as usual. And just for our audience, we didn't forget you. Please write your comments and questions. We're gonna get there in a few minutes. And William, outside of the world of tech and digitalization, for how many years you've been mentoring, managing, and producing young, aspiring musicians? How did this come about? I'm really curious.
Well, I have a TED talk. Lamentably, it is only in Spanish. I was invited to give a TED talk some 9 years ago, where I explained this. It has to do, obviously, with my personality and my principles, but it has to do also with my personal background. Uh, I'm a naturally very grateful person. I mean, every day I'm constantly reminding myself of all those people that made it possible for me to come out of poverty and be who I am right now. So it's very simple. From a very early age, I would say before I entered high school, uh, I was very motivated to pay back what I was given, what I consider to be a gift from people, but also from life. And the best way for me to do that is to do for young people what these other people did for me. This is a virtuous chain. If any of us who have any kind of success in whatever area we are, we dedicate half a day a week to lend a hand to somebody who is in age younger than you are and help them come up the way other people help you come up. I mean, the power that this has educationally exceeds the power of all the largest universities in the world. So this is a mission that I have, and it's natural to me. At this point, I don't even think about it. I mean, if I see somebody who has a need, has an idea, needs a jump start, I'm always willing to help.
I'm gonna connect with you, William, after this talk. um, and like, are there any special stories from the world of music that you'd like to share with our fellows today?
Many that I am. I have been involved with music almost my entire life, and it's a world filled with nice stories. Maybe perhaps because of the role music plays. Um, music is um, music is a language of the soul, and you know every human being has the capability to express himself or through music. Uh, Stories. I remember. I'm a big fan of intuition. You know, I appreciate the power of the intuition. One of the I have promoted is the solitary is well known, and that came out as an experiment because I discovered
Uh, I'm
certain
sorry to
parts of
interrupt
the
you, William,
fact that
but uh, I assume there is a bad network. If you can please reshare with us um, the story, because like it was interrupted and
okay,
we
so
couldn't hear it. Sorry about that.
yeah, no, I was just talking about one particular example of a musical venture that I had backed for years. And it came out as an experiment because I found a group of people who, like me, thought that the human being has a tendency to prefer voices to instruments. I mean, if you play any kind of music, jazz or salsa, pop, the moment the singer starts singing, everybody forgets about the instruments. This is a fact. So we said, well, let's do something. Why don't we take popular music in an track? And what we did, we started playing popular music without the vocals. So we would force people to pay attention to what the musicians uh, uh, were performing, and it worked quite well because we get constantly mail from people saying, "What an interesting idea! I never thought that if I was able to hear the instrumental part of music, I would hear different music than when I hear it with singers on." And the interesting thing is, this is how small the world is. Years later, many, many years later, I received a book that is called World Rhythms as a gift on my birthday. And there is an interview in that book with a man that I admire quite a bit, that some of you may know, Brian Eno. Brian Eno is one of the greatest geniuses in music in the world. And Brian pretty much told the same story, that one day he got bothered enough by the tendency of people to prefer, in terms of attention, the singers to the ensembles and the musicians, that he stopped recording peculiar noises. So I find it quite peculiar, and this happens in music, that people in different parts of the world, playing different music, would come to the same conclusion. And this is what makes music tremendous, because music is always a vehicle for research. And research means you're interacting with human beings. And if you pay attention, what is your interaction with human beings like? You start discovering very, very interesting things. And so for me, it's a passion. I have a saying that people who work in the music industry know. You say, my day has 48 hours. So music influences my day.
Great. Thank you so much, William, for sharing with us the story. And we only have a couple of minutes left, so we're going to use them really well. If you were to give three pieces of advice for all rising global leaders watching us right now, what would they be?
Well, if you're young, which I suspect many of you are, uh, I suppose that the reason you are affiliated with Atlas is your desire to influence and change the world. And that's great. That's very, very exciting. However, what has to be, I always have, it's too bad that I cannot show myself body length. But one thing that will make you very effective as a leader is what I call, the highest stretch. That is, you want to reach high with your hands. This is a symbolism for reaching for the sky. But the thing that you can never do, it is considered cheating in my rules, is you cannot separate your feet from the ground. That is, aim high, keep your feet on the ground. So you can be a dreamer, but our responsibility as leaders is dreaming with the feet on the ground. This is probably what's most important in terms of staying relevant.
That's an amazing advice. So, all of our fellows, keep dreaming, but you should make sure that your feet are on the ground. And let's have a look at some of the questions folks are asking us on our social media channels. We're going to start with the first question by Anil from Nepal. When we talk about digital transformation and poverty, we often also see that who can access technology are wealthy class or better off compared to poor and marginalized. Do you think that digital transformation further widens poverty's gap? If yes, how can we address this issue?
It has done it already. It has done it. One of the things that I love about my trip to India about 2 years ago is that actually it was the last trip I did before the lockdown. It is that you know, those of us who have been involved in leadership positions in government uh, have a preference to think in terms of public policy and programs, and that's okay. But I started realizing the extent of the power of digital technology on the lives of people many years after I became an entrepreneur in the industry. I'll tell you, this is a story that opened my eyes years ago. I was in Mexico, not this time. I come and go into Mexico from different angles at different parts of my life. But we went through a double whammy in 2009. We had a recession, which was caused by the recession in the US, right when Barack Obama took on the presidency. And then, to make matters worse, about 2 months later, we have a pandemic. I don't know if you remember the last time we had a pandemic, which the virus was called H1N1. That pandemic originated in Mexico. So when we got through it, we had a very sad picture of devastation on the poor class. I mean, people who were poor were hit especially hard. So we have another service company that basically did digital connectivity in cities this time, not on in the rural sector, but for people of lower income. And we were forced to go customer by customer, asking them to resign or to temporarily turn off some of the services we told them because they didn't have any money to pay us. So that was a very painful exercise. And the interesting thing is that what we observe time after time is that especially the mothers who are the leaders of the households, they would tell us, Mira, take away all the services, take the phone, take the TV, take the cellular phone, but please do not disconnect the broadband. I mean, and this was a shock because I never really knew what kind of impact poor households until they begged us, please do not disconnect the broadband. This was told by the very people themselves. So why is this? Well, because it was easy because we visit our customers often to discover that they were either studying distance why they were doing some business online. And once there was a digital media that connected those disenfranchised people to the rest of the society, that is when you saw that the impediment of not having enough financial means was getting in the way of the intelligence of many of the people. And I go back to my topic before. This is why I call digital transformation is my favorite tool to fight.
I think our speaker has some internet connections talking about digitalization. William, are you still with us?
I am, but
Ah, yeah, okay, perfect. It was interrupted for a while, but no worries. Um,
yeah,
do you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Yes, perfect.
I hear you well.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you another question from Marta, Lithuania. Statistics seem to be more and more often used selectively by those who wish to support their own agendas or simply misinform. Do you have any tips on how to prevent data manipulation and disinformation?
Well, the first thing is you need to understand data analysis. I mean, when you started by describing people using these for their own personal or groupal interests, it doesn't bother me as long as I can see your data. Because if I see the data that you're basing your thesis on, I can go into it. And if there is something that actually doesn't correlate, I'll find it out. But as long as we share the facts that we're basing our conclusions on in terms of data, the same thing you can do to support one point. If I find myself uncomfortable and I can demonstrate that it's not so, I'll do it on the same data that you're doing.
Okay. William, are you with us?
Hello, I'm here. I have the word from the other side. About 30 seconds, so the connection had fallen again.
Okay. So we have a third question from Jonas from Ethiopia. Um, to be a great leader, you need to be a great follower. How did you learn from your leaders when you were young and a follower? I love this question, by the way.
My experience is very peculiar in this respect. Remember my background, I am by that time a young widow. We were very much family. Uh, are you following this? Can you hear me?
No, it's interrupting. We cannot hear you well.
Oh, I know what happened.
Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, now it's so much better. Thank you so
No,
much.
no, what happened is, let me do something that my phone, who is very much is insisting on our. I turned my phone off. He had to switch to my phone. I was saying that my experience in this is peculiar. You remember my background? I was the son of a young widow. We were five brothers. We were not very well economically. So the biggest support that I got early on was from the church. My mother found a way to put me in a Catholic school, and a lot of these issues of leadership I receive from the Christian Brothers. Christian Brothers is an order, is a religious order of uh, French origins, and they were responsible for me until pretty much I went into high school. And because of the discipline that they followed, uh, you as a youngster were expected. By the way, this is not very much what I like, but this is what I went through. You were expected to listen always and to be careful when you spoke. That is, if you wanted to say something, it had to be something relevant. And you couldn't say anything relevant if you were not listening to the other person talking. So for me, this was a dynamic that was instilled in me very early on in life. In my case, and you remember that I was a skywalker. I kept walking all the time, everywhere. And the reason why I like moving and meeting people and so on is because until today in life, uh, the thing that I care the most is not what I know. That's okay with me, what I know. The thing that really motivates me is what I do not know. And especially those people that I am yet to meet in my life that will teach me something that I do not know. So, I mean, listening for me is important because the biggest source of knowledge for me is always other people, not so much books.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us your own experience and story. I have a question, though
Yes.
I'm one of your audience, so um, like um, if you have the chance to get a resource or a mentorship or an opportunity when you were young to become a better person, a successful person, what would you wish to get?
Well, I mean, I think about that from time to time. Uh, I ended up involved in politics very young, very, very young. I mean, I got involved in politics when I was 12 years old. And I did that through the university and through my career up to some point. But I did that at the expense of not doing other things. So there are a few things that I wish I would have taken more seriously early on. Like,
Mhm.
for instance, uh, I did not start reading heavily until I was like 19 years old. So I remember that I didn't take reading seriously until I went into the university. And I think if I had done that earlier, a good number of things that I actually experienced empirically would have come to me in a more structured way because those experiences had already been lived by somebody else and they were in writing. I just simply didn't read them. So
Amazing.
you can tell that that is a regret. I don't have a problem with that.
And would you recommend a book for us?
Wow, I've read so many books. What is my favorite book? Wow, that's quite a question. Uh, well, I mean, let's solve it data science like. So let's do some analytics. What is the book that I have read the most times in my life? The book that I have read the most times in my life is a book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the Nobel Prize winner. You know, uh, is Love in the Times of Cholera. I mean, I keep reading that book and read it, and I don't get tired of reading it. A movie, what is the movie that I have seen the most times? And I actually know the number. It's estimated to be at least 550 times. Is
Wow.
the trilogy of Star Wars. I had a son who was paraplegic, and he was a big fan. So the thing he cared the most with me and his brothers and sisters is that we watch Star Wars with him every weekend. So he died when he was about 18 years of age. So if you count the number of weekends, 52 a year, it pretty much gives at least 550 times.
Wow. And please, can you repeat us the name of the book?
Oh, Love in the Times of Cholera. That's a translation of the name, and it's a literal translation because the original book was written in Spanish, as Garcia Marquez's books
Oh,
all are written in Spanish.
I'm
But this
gonna
is a
definitely read that this month.
okay. No, it's a powerful book because it is inspired in a story, in a love story. It's a love story of his grandparents. But as a great writer than he is, he takes that love story as an excuse to immerse you in the complex world of relationships, power, destruction, war, peace. I mean, this is what makes these guys such powerful writers. I mean, you give them one excuse and they will have you, in this humongous, complex, funny, interesting, sad world of things, which is what humankind is.
Yes, totally right. Thank you so much, William. Thank you, like, for participating, for joining us today, for another keynote session of Atlas Core Global Leadership Lab. Thank you, our fellows. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube for more engaging content like this. My name is Tamar, and our guest today was William Nazaret. Thank you so much, William. It was really, really fun
Yeah, am I
to have
allowed a
you.
last Am I allowed last word before I leave?
Yes, sure. I was about to say that.
You remember that those of you probably remember that I touched upon a point and then I left. Yeah, I do a lot of charity work. This is another part of me paying. I mean, I remember every person that when we didn't have food gave me food or to my house. I mean, this is something that had an effect on me important. Those of you who are directly involved in social work, uh, I think be, uh, you should always have present that it is it is possible to do important social work at the same time that you generate value and wealth. Value and wealth are different things. Uh, I invite those of you who have the inclination, the the dare, because you have to be daring, to think of the sometimes the biggest impact you make on somebody else's life is financial. Financial. I had throughout the years scholarship programs in various countries. And the definition of the program is simple. You remember when I said that my mother was able to take me and register me in a private school for free? Why? Because, I played my case. And the brother said, okay, you can come into the school. And that's how I am today. If I hadn't had the chance to study in that prestigious private school, I would probably not be here. So my personality is such that uh, I'm not a big fan of having a fat checking account. Never was. So what I do is, because I have made significant wealth, is as long as I have enough extra money in one of my accounts, if somebody needs funds to fund the venture, I will do it. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm well known to take my rent and lend it to somebody else, and then I have to go out and try to find how to pay my own rent. So this is very important. I think we need we need uh, we need more people like that in the world. It bothers me that there is so much attachment to monetary wealth. When in fact, what do you do with all that money in the bank? I mean, well, Jeff Bezos builds himself rockets and goes into space. I mean, I congratulate him. I would have taken that same money and maybe, going to India or Mexico or some part in Africa and build, a school system from the ground up. But there are many of you who are going to have the luck and the talent to make yourself wealthy. But once you get there, don't forget where you come from. Don't do it.
Oh my God, this was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, William. I'm really honored to have you as a guest and to have this talk with you. We will always remember you and invite you at La Score. I hope our audience had enjoyed and was inspired by our amazing speaker. You want to say any last words, William, before leaving?
No, well, there are so many of you connected out there. We're friends already. So any of you who wants to speak one to one, contact me. It is always a pleasure for me. It is always a pleasure for me. And the fact that I met recently Atlas Corps is a blessing. Uh, Abby can actually testify how exciting has it become for me, just because of the fact that you are young people, aspiring leaders that want to change the world. I mean, anything that I can do to facilitate that you make it and you have an impact, I am your friend. I will be your collaborator.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.